There doesn't seem to be any intention to get rid of them, and there doesn't either seem to be any intention on behalf of the White House to somehow explain why exactly these were retweeted and where the thought process might have come from when the US president decided to hit that retweet button early here this morning local time. We have heard since then from White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders. She says this: Donald Trump, with those retweets, wanted to promote national security and wanted to promote strong borders. Doesn't really have much to do with those retweets, but still. She was then asked whether the White House had an obligation to verify whether information is in fact not fake before retweeting it to millions of people. After all, the reaction from Sarah Huckabee Sanders is this one: the threat is real. Now, the threat, if you know what the White House has been talking about since this administration has been in office, is presumably radical Islamist terrorism. But again, that of course does not have much to do with those retweets, which are still to be entirely verified. We still don't know whether these were in fact Muslims perpetrating violence against non-Muslims, and does it really matter in the end? In terms of the reactions here in Washington, well, as usual, very little from the White House. There are no excuses. This is, after all, a White House that could say sorry for something that seems to peddle violence against violence perpetrated by Muslims, though it's not verified. There is no reaction from Republicans in the US Congress, though we do have a few reactions from the Civil Rights, the Civil Liberties Union, the American Civil Liberties Union, and from the Council for American Islamic Relations, who, of course, have denounced these retweets, much as a spokesperson for Number 10 Downing Street also has. But from within the White House, you get the impression that this is not taken quite as seriously as it is right now in the United Kingdom and indeed worldwide.
Yeah, let me read you one of those reactions from the United Kingdom. Brendan Cox, the widower of MP Joe Cox, she was murdered by a right-wing extremist in the days before the Brexit vote, an extremist who had yelled "Britain first," saying, Brendan Cox saying, quote, "Trump has legitimized the far right in his own country. Now he's trying to do it in ours." Trying to legitimize the far right in the United States. How far can you corroborate that claim? Well, it's something that one cannot state unequivocally here. That is not something that the US president himself has said, and insofar we can't state that either. But what we know, of course, is that this is a president who has been surrounded by some who have peddled white nationalist views in the past. That includes one of his most senior advisors, who's now gone, Steve Bannon. He was the head of his campaign, after all. And again, you go back to those tweets, which are, according to the White House, official presidential, official White House statements. Some of those retweets that have come from the US president have come from accounts of white nationalists. They have come from accounts of neo-Nazis. And of course, remember that as a candidate, this was a candidate at the time, of course, Donald Trump, who said that he wanted to ban Muslims entirely from entering the United States. He then tried as president to make that a reality with a travel ban for citizens from 7 Muslim-majority countries. That, of course, a ban that was largely halted in court. But all of these are elements that lead you to believe and maybe analyze that there is something to those statements. Again, it's not something that we can state outright. This is a president who does not say black on white what he believes clearly. Again, this time around, it comes through retweets, and we have no explanation around them, either from the US president, why he did this, who might have told him to do so, where he might have first seen these tweets, because these are things that flash up on the screen of the US president. How does that happen? Does he follow these accounts? Does somebody tell him to look at them? Those are things we do not know. And from the White House at this point, we have no explanation either.